And on to breaking news coming in. Former US Secretary of State Colin Powell has succumbed to complications that emerged out of COVID-19. The announcement was made by his family on Facebook. He oversaw the US invasion of Panama and later the US invasion of Kuwait to oust the Iraqi army in 1991. I want to cut across to my colleague Ankit, who joins us from the digital desk. And Ankit, indeed, he is a man who was privy to the biggest secrets in the United States, and not just his family, but the country mourning his loss. Take us through the details.
Absolutely, Suesha. So Colin Powell at the start of the 2000s was one of the senior-most US government officials. He was the Secretary of State under the George W. Bush administration. Secretary of State is the fourth in line of presidential succession, and he is basically his go-to point man for a lot of things. Now, the George W. Bush administration, you'll all remember, was the one that entered the war in Afghanistan and also the war in Iraq. Now, when they entered the war in Iraq, it was Colin Powell's job essentially to get coalition support for the US. They claimed that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and that is why they entered. So that was a very controversial and very big decision that Colin Powell created an environment for at that time. Before that also, he was a very, very important member. He had become the first ever African-American US Secretary of State. So you'll all remember in 2008, Barack Obama became the first African-American president of the US. Before Obama, it was Colin Powell and Colin Powell's successor, Condoleezza Rice, who were the topmost African-American position holders in the US government until that time. He had been a soldier for over 30 years, almost 35 years, and he also served in Vietnam. And after serving as a soldier, he made his way up to the US Joint Chief of Staff. So he was the Joint Chief of Staff of the US military services. That is the topmost defense position at the Pentagon. So that just gives you an indication of how important he was. He entered politics at a time when people thought that he could go Republican or he could go Democrat. Eventually, he chose to go Republican. And so he entered politics in a very, very big way. He died of COVID complications. I must just tell you before I hand it back to you, he had been vaccinated with both doses, is what his family says. The statement can be accessed on republicworld.com. The story is with me right now, along with all his career achievements and why it is that Colin Powell was important. Back to you, Suesha.
Absolutely, Ankit, and I want to thank you for joining us this evening.